have will give you moderation. Because in order to win, you need to get the center or close to the center left, center right. You need to have big tent parties. You need to have catch-all parties. And even today, if you compare the conservatives we have, I want to replace them. I think they are bad. But I think they are better than many of the extreme right-wing parties you have in Europe today. So it's important to have an appeal at the center. It's what the system gives to us. Territoriality. You elect an MP from a riding, and this person is linked to the riding. In a country like Canada, it's very, very important. Remember what Mackenzie said. We may not have a lot of history, but we have a lot of geography. So I don't think Canadians will accept to have people that are not linked to the territory. So these are the strengths, and you will tell me, so good, why would change it? Well, we have important shortcomings to this system. You have distortion between the votes and the seats. You may have a party that have less than 40% of the support, popular support with the votes, and to be the majority government. I think it's a problem. Some would say yes, but over time, you have a fairness in it. Today it's a conservative, yesterday it was the liberals, and one day maybe it will be the NDP. So the rule make it more equal because it's not always the same party that benefit from the extra seats that give the system. I think it's still a problem. Think of a situation where the party that becomes the government is not the first party in terms of votes. If I ask you who won the 1979 federal election in Canada, do you remember who won it? 79. Who won the 79 election? 79. It was? Conservatives, yes, because they had more seats, but they had 36% of the votes, and we liberals had 40% and we lost. At that time we were not very happy with the system. Okay? In my province in Quebec, as Caroline said, there is an overkill for the liberals in Montreal. Many people vote for us, but it did not give us a lot of seats, so the Parti Québécois is likely to win with 3 or 4 points below the liberals in terms of votes. It happened recently against Bouchard and Charest. So this is a problem to me. The other problem is that sometimes the opposition is too weak. In New Brunswick, the liberals won so much that there were 0 MLAs in the opposition. Doesn't make sense. Many people didn't vote liberal, but there were no non-liberal in the Legislative Assembly. And it happened in British Columbia where there were 1 or 2 MLAs facing the government. I think it's a problem. We should try to address it. The government may be far away of the preferences of most voters. And we're arguing this situation in which we are now. It's okay if the government is close to the views of everyone. But if the government is far right, like Mr. Harper is, you have 60% of Canadians that don't recognize this government today. So it's a kind of difficulty. But the main one to me, because for me the priority is always Canada, is the exaggerated regional concentration. I mean by that, there are many people that don't vote conservative in Alberta, but election after election, all the seats are almost in Alberta are conservatives. With 40% of support, you may take the whole province. With 20% of support, you may have 0 seat in the province. And so it's given a sense that the country is more divided than the country is in fact. If I ask you how many times over 7 elections since this party exists, the Bloc Québécois had more, a majority of votes in Quebec. How many times? Over 7 elections. 0. Always they had more seats than the others because the Federalist parties were split, and the Separatist party was able to win a lot of seats because of that. So we need to address these issues. What we have decided to do in Ottawa in January was to change this electoral system by the alternative vote or preferential ballot, and I see that they call it the ranked ballots instant runoff. So how it works? You go at the ballot box, instead to choose only a candidate, you rank the they see how many votes each candidate has. If a candidate reaches 50%, that's it. This candidate is the MP. If not, then you eliminate the weaker candidate and you consider the second choice of the voters of this candidate until you reach 50%. So in the ballot box, you say first Liberal, that's it. Second Green, third NDP, and then you stop there and you leave. Well, you may continue if you want. Fourth Conservative if you want. I would suggest it's your choice, and this gives you the result. So what are the strengths of this system? It's easy to do. You don't need to change the boundaries of the ridings. Very easy to do. It gives you more information on the preferences of the voters. It's a fair trade-off. I mean by that, the people that are unlikely to see their party win because the party is too weak in the riding, they still have an incentive to go into the ballot box because their second or third choice are more likely to be considered. That if you choose for the party that is the most likely to win. It's a majority support in each riding, so it strengthens the legitimacy of the MP. The same likelihood to have a majority government for the people that think it's important, have a Liberal majority government, let's say, the same likelihood. And it eliminates strategic voting. So last election in this town, when Layton said, if you don't want Harper, vote for me. And Harper said, if you don't want Layton, vote for me, and we have been squeezed by many Liberals that by for a strategic vote, voted for other parties. With this system, it does not exist. The first choice is Liberal, remaining Liberal. So you have no strategic voting anymore. It decreases the risk that the party becomes the government, while this party is far down in the preferences of the majority of voters, because you consider the second choice and the third choice. So it's likely that the government will be closer to the preference of everyone. It injects incentives of more civility in the debate. I want you to consider me as your first choice. If I'm not your first choice, consider me as your second choice because I'm very polite with your leader. And we agreed about a lot of our platforms. So the best way to convince you to choose me as your second choice is not to come with ugly attack ads to destroy the leader in which you believe. It injects more civility in the debate. It is why a lot of classic authors like John Stuart Mill and Kenneth Arrow and so on recommended this multi-preferential ballot system. So, is it perfect? No. We need to improve it. You have shortcomings. You do nothing to correct the distortions I just mentioned before. In fact, in some ways, and sometimes, it may be even worse. Do nothing to correct the exaggerated regionalization of the vote. Still, you will have almost all the seats in Alberta that will be conservative. Still, the bloc may be parliament in Quebec to offer killing and so on. It does not correct over-representation. And it's unlikely to be supported in a referendum. Right? Because people who like proportional representation will never choose this system since it does not correct the problems that they see as the most important ones. And people that are comfortable with the current system are unlikely to support this system. So in UK, when they suggested it in the referendum, it has been clearly rejected. So what to do else? Something I would not recommend is pure proportional representation. Pure proportional representation is like if Canada as a whole was one riding. Okay? Canada is one riding. You have 300 seats. So the parties suggest 300 names on the list. The first name is the first to be chosen, and the last one is you have 100% of people voted for you, the last one will be chosen. So assume that you have 1% of support in the population. You are entitled to 3 seats out of 300. If you have 5% of the population, 15 seats. If you have 50% of the population, 150 seats. The strength of this system is that it's the pure mirror of the public opinion. So the other advantage for it is that it will likely increase the turnout. In our system of today, if you go in the riding, if you are in the riding where your party, in your mind, according to polls, is sure to win, you may stay home. I will not change anything, my party will win anyway. But if your party is sure to lose, you will stay home. You cannot win. So they like, with the PR, pure proportional representation, each vote is equal. Your vote will make the same difference as anybody else. So the likelihood that the turnout will be a bit higher exists. And different studies have tried to see by how much. It's not huge. Some say 6 percentage points, others 2%. It depends, but still you will have a higher turnout. Another advantage of this system is that it's likely that it will be fairer for minorities and women, because parties that are equalitarian, like ours, will put women and men quite equal at the top of the list, and minorities as well. And it is our interest to do so, to say to these electorates, vote for us, we have people that will represent you high in our list. So these are the strength of this system. So the shortcomings, why I do not recommend that. High instability. Many one-issue parties see the interest to try, because if I have 2% of the vote, I will have a seat, and I will exist in the parliament. It will be beginning to grow and to grow. So you have likelihood that you will have a lot of parties, and then to figure out who will be the government is very complicated. At the end of the day of the vote, you don't know who will be the government. They need to negotiate the parties between them, and it will give complicated coalitions that are unstable, that may fail, and you may be back at an election 6 months after, and so on and so on. This also it will give you many highly ideological parties, one-issue parties, ethnic parties, far right-wing parties. Some people like PR because it will give you a green party. Yes, but it may give you a lot of extremist right-wing parties and racist parties, as you will see, even in the most moderate countries of Europe now. Like in France, in 1986, they decided to have proportional representation at their National Assembly, and it gave right away 36 MPs from the Le Pen party, the Parti de Front National. Well, the election after decided to come back to the majority system, the system close to ours. It gave 0 member of the extremist party. So this is why pure PR is a problem. So, and no territoriality. If it's a list, it's good to promote women and minorities, but if it's a list, nobody is linked to a territory. So you have no territoriality, and it's a big problem in a country like Canada. And the risk also that radical parties may have a strong influence in the executive branch, like in Israel, where they have pure PR and very difficult right-wing or religious parties have a strength in the executive branch that is far bigger than what they have as an actual support in the population. So what countries do to decrease these problems while keep the advantage of it? Well, almost everywhere, except in Israel and Netherlands, they come with a threshold. They say, in order to be in the parliament of the country, you need to have at least X% of the popular vote. Like in Germany it's 5%, in Poland it's 7%, in Turkey it's 10%, and so on. And this eliminates a lot of small parties, but it's also re-injecting the system strategic voting. If I vote for a too small party, maybe my vote will disappear with this party. So it's a problem, but most countries decided in order to have a viable proportional representation to come with a threshold. Some countries have decided to have a mixed system, partly like ours, first past the post, and partly proportional representation with or without the threshold. In Japan and Russia, it's what they have. In Germany, they have that too, but in order to have the seats for a party in the proportional representation part, they compensate for the distortion of the first past the post system. Maybe it's too complex what I'm saying, so I stop there and to conclude. My recommendation recommendation. You have, instead of electing one MP by district, you elect between 4 and 6 MPs by larger districts, with some exception, because of the territory we have. I think the territories of the north will remain with 1 MP. I don't see how we may merge then to have more MPs, and there are not enough people there to justify many MPs. The same for that matter. But the standard would be, let's say, 4 in rural Canada and 6 in urban Canada. You elect them through what they call ranked ballot in multi-member wards or districts. You continue to rank your parties according to your preference. And we continue to compute it in a way that the party that receives 50% have 50% of the seats after considering their preferences. So you have the advantage of alternative vote, and you have proportional representation in a way that is not extreme, that is moderate. You have also a second vote. You vote twice. You vote for the party. And for the party you prefer, let's say it's the Liberals, you choose among the 6 candidates that are Liberals, the one you prefer. You have still then the capacity to vote for an individual. The Canadians want that. They don't want to only vote for a party. They want to vote for Caroline Bennett, her. So, Caroline, you will choose Caroline Bennett as your preferences as a Liberal. And it gives you, I think, a lot of advantages. We'll speak more about the system, but a lot of advantages of both worlds without too much inconvenience. There are inconveniences. The first one I would say is, since you have many MPs in a riding, it's more difficult to identify 1% with one riding. No, most people will not be able to memorize who are these 6 persons. So I understand. But at the same time, you will have competition between them. If you have an MP that is lazy today, you're stuck with this lazy MP. If you want that an MP is working hard for you, you choose the one that is working hard for you. And you say, this is the best one. You try. It's like you try different doctors, you choose the best. So I understand this, it's a problem to have many MPs for a riding, but I think we may figure out a way that it may work. Another difficulty is that you will have competition within a party, between fellow Liberals, fellow Conservatives, fellow NDPs, and so on. Yeah, but I hope it will be a friendly one. At the end of the day, I think Canadians don't want the party to decide with a block list, a closed list, for whom they will vote. They want to choose individuals. So I think it's the best system I would recommend. It will decrease the likelihood to have a majority government, but it will be viable coalitions and informed by the choice Canadians will have done in their preferential ballot. It will not be for the parties will need to take into account that Canadians have decided to prefer, if they are Liberals, to prefer the NDP and the NDP the Liberal and so on. It will give an information about the way this coalition may work. So this is my suggestion. It's very early in the game to come with a suggestion. But according to all the criteria I identified, to have preferential ballot with multi-member districts would be good for Canada. Thank you.